Good evening. I would like to call this annual meeting of July 6, 2023 to order. I am the holdover district clerk. I will be serving as chairperson pro tem until the nomination and the election of the Board of Education president. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. Okay, I will now call the roll. Ms. Boulay, Mr. Borgarelli, Mr. Duray, Ms. Green, here. Mr. Howard, here. Mr. Lamar, here. Mr. Levenstein, here. Ms. Paletti, Mr. Straight-Iron. Okay, the first order of business is Agenda Item 2.1 to administer the oath to the newly elected Board of Education members. Please join me at the podium when I call your name to take the oath. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear.
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support the Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of New York.
And the Constitution of the State of New York.
And I will faithfully discharge the duties.
And I will faithfully discharge the duties.
Of the Office of Trustee of the Board of Education.
Of the Office of Trustee of the Board of Education.
According to the best of my ability.
According to the best of my ability.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Wait, hold on. Ms. Paletti? Too quick. I need you to sign. All right, if you could just sign here and date it. Too excited. Perfect, thank you so much. Okay, next, Ms. Boulay. Ms. Boulay? Okay, so repeat after me. Raise your right hand. I do solemnly swear.
I do solemnly swear.
That I will support the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support the Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of New York.
And the Constitution of the State of New York.
And I will faithfully discharge the duties.
And I will faithfully discharge the duties.
Of the Office of Trustee of the Board of Education.
Of the Office of Trustee of the Board of Education.
According to the best of my ability.
According to the best of my ability.
Great, thank you. You could sign here, date. Okay, Mr. Borgarelli. Sorry, I just have to make sure I have the right paper. Okay, perfect. Raise your hand. Repeat after me. I do solemnly swear.
I do solemnly swear.
That I will support the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support the Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of New York.
And the Constitution of the State of New York.
And I will faithfully discharge the duties.
And I will faithfully discharge the duties.
Of the Office of Trustee of the Board of Education.
Of the Office of Trustee of the Board of Education.
According to the best of my ability.
According to the best of my ability.
Perfect. You could just sign up here.
Oh, that's supposed to be a 3.
Okay.
And that mic is on. Thank you.
Okay, congratulations to our newly elected Board of Education members. Okay, the next order of business is nomination of President of Board of Education for the 2023-2024 school year.
Madam Chair Pro Tem,
Yes.
I would like to put in the nomination Mr. John DeRay as President for this Board of Education for the next ensuing year.
Mr. John DeRay, can you please repeat? That was an echo. I'm sorry. Mr. John DeRay
Mr. John DeRay
for
for President for
President.
the ensuing
Perfect.
year.
Okay. Any other nominations?
I would like to nominate Darren Stradian.
Okay, number 2, we have Mr. Stradian. Any other nominations?
Are we allowed to make any comments?
Sure.
I have a couple. It's going to take a couple of minutes.
Okay.
What I'm about to say, I'm going to tell you, is not personal at all. I come here to serve the board and the school district. So I've been wrestling with the topics of ethical and illegal, and I'll bring it around. I'm going to start by ethical, and I'll give you an example. A young mother hears her 3-year-old crying loudly at 2 a.m. in the morning. She discovers the baby has a raging fever and needs immediate help. She wakes her husband. They rush off to the emergency room with the mother holding the baby in a cold towel as the husband ignores the no ride on red signs on the way to St. Luke's. It's illegal to hold the baby, and it's illegal to ignore the signs. That's crystal clear. That's the law. But is it unethical? Any parent in a similar situation would most likely behave in a similar way, so not everything that is illegal is unethical. What about the reverse? Is everything unethical illegal? Well, that's not true either. People lie all the time. Unless you're under oath, lying is not illegal, but is it unethical? 4 weeks ago, I think 4 weeks ago, I learned in this public forum something I didn't know before, that a current board member has a $45 million lawsuit, million with an M, against the district. This due to a situation long before I got here involving end-of-year grading several years ago. I'm going to clarify, is it legal for the board member to file suit for damages against the school system? It absolutely is. Obviously, since the case is moving through the courts and the member is still on the board, a better question is it ethical for a board member to have such an obvious conflict of interest and continue to be an effective board member or perhaps president of the board? Can a board member who would like to appear as a fiscal champion be at the same time a board member looking for a settlement from the same institution where they profess to be a fiscal champion? This while knowing that every dollar not covered by insurance, and there's no guarantee if there's a settlement, insurance will pay, every dollar won is a dollar not available to increase teacher pay or provide additional resources for our scholars. The member who filed the suit has been very instrumental in having 5 of the last 5 elected board members be elected. I'm one of the 5. I'm very grateful for the help that I received, but I was not aware of this lawsuit. Keep in mind that 5 votes wins on any business the board votes on, including settlements with those seeking damages. For those who may not know how this works, I'll briefly explain. As with any case of this type, eventually somebody is going to look for a settlement, and the amount of money will be agreed upon between the school attorney and the plaintiff, who is a board member. The board member will need to recuse themselves while the remaining board members vote to accept or not accept the settlement. My question is, what will it look like to our community when 5 people who were elected with the help of the board member named the settlement have to vote on the settlement and approve it? Even more concerning, what does it look like to the community if the same board member is in a position where they're actually able to direct the business of the board as this suit moves toward settlement? Again, is this legal? I emphasize, amazingly it is. Is it ethical? That's your call as voting members. Is it a conflict of interest? Again, your call as voting members. I'll end by quoting Ray Harvey, who speaks at the podium often. Please make this make sense to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeWright. Are there any more nominations for President of the Board? Okay. Can I please have a motion and a second to close nomination for President of the Board?
Just a motion.
Just a motion, okay.
Well, there has been motion, right? There have been nominations, so you need to
Okay,
vote.
perfect. So
You
can I
need to
have,
vote on the candidates in order.
so just a vote?
To vote on the
Oh,
candidates.
okay, so
in
let's
order,
vote.
In order.
Okay. All right, we're going to vote on the candidates. First is Mr. Duray for president. Ms. Boulay? Yes, please. No, you can speak.
No.
Mr. Borgarelli?
No.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
No.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Lamar?
No.
Mr. Levinstein?
Yes.
Ms. Poletti? No. Mrs. Straight Iron?
No.
That motion failed. Okay, we are going to vote for Mr. Darren Straight Iron as the President of the Board of Education. Ms. Boulay?
Yes.
Mr. Borgarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
No.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
No.
Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Levinstein? Ms. Poletti?
Yes.
Mr. Straight Iron?
Yes.
Mr. Straight Iron has been elected President of the Board of Education. Congratulations. Okay, I will not administrate the oath of office. It's the Board of Education. Sorry. I need my pen. Raise your right hand and repeat after. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of President of the Board of Education
of the office of President of the Board of Education
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my abilities.
Thank you. Good sign. Good day. Okay, great. Congratulations, Mr. Straight Iron. I will now turn the gavel over to the President of the Board. You can join me here.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We need to go into executive session. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby recesses into executive session.
The Vice President. We have to
Oh,
nominate the
sorry.
Vice
Vice President.
Yes.
Got ahead of myself there. To have the vote for Vice President. Roll call, please. Nominations for Vice President. John DeRay. Any other motions? Nominations?
I'm sorry.
Deb Pilati. Oh, Deb Boulay. I get the name mixed up, I'm sorry.
Deborah Lake.
Thank you.
First, Mr. John DeRay for Vice President. Roll call.
Mr. Borgarelli?
No.
Mr. DeRay?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
No.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Lamar?
No.
Mr. Levinstein?
Yes.
Ms. Paletti?
No.
Mrs. Straight Iron?
No.
Ms. Belay?
No.
That motion fell. Okay, we're moving to the next. He did not get elected to next one. Now we
Ms. Belay.
roll call.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Levinstein? No. Ms. Paletti?
Yes.
Mrs. Straight Iron?
Yes.
Ms. Belay?
Yes.
Mr. Borgarelli?
Yes.
Mr. DeRay?
No.
Passed.
Motion passes. Congratulations, Ms. Belay, Vice President of the Board.
Now you can,
I have to do it?
no, right, you have to administer the oath for her.
You have the paperwork?
Yes, I do.
Please raise your right hand. I do solemnly swear,
I do solemnly swear,
affirm that I will support
affirm that I will support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the Office of Vice President
the duties of the office of Vice President
of the Board of Education
of the Board of Education
according to my best ability.
according to the best of my ability. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
We will now need to go into executive session. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby recesses into executive session for the following purpose: employment history of particular individuals, employment history of particular corporations, matters leading to the employment of particular individuals, and to obtain advice from legal counsel. Can I have a motion and a second, please?
Mr. Howard? Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Levinstein? Yes. Ms. Paletti? Yes. Mrs. Straight Iron?
Yes.
Ms. Belay?
Yes.
Mr. Borgarelli?
Yes.
Mr. DeRay?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Perfect.
We'll be returning in approximately 30 minutes. There are items that need to be discussed before we vote on any of these items. Thank you. On section of the agenda, it's 2.10 through 2.16. Need a motion to add these items? Make a motion to bring these items up?
Motion.
Second. Would anyone like to separate any of the items from 2.10 to 2.16? Ms. Belay?
2.10 and 2.12.
2.10 and 2.12. Mr. Howard, you have a question? Okay. I'd like to actually separate items 2.13, items 2 and 5, and item 2.14, item 2 and 3. So we are left with item 2.11, 2.13, item number 1, 3, and 4. Actually, 1, 3, 4, 6, and 7. And item 2.15 and 2.16. All right, let's have a roll call on those items.
Okay.
Everything but the ones that were separated.
Okay.
Roll call.
Ready? Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Is it yes? Mr. Lamar? Yes. Mr. Levinstein? Yes. Ms. Paletti?
Yes.
Mr. Straight Iron?
Yes.
Ms. Boulay?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. DeRay?
All right, let's go to item 2.10. Motion to, thank you.
Second.
Yes, Ms. Boulay.
I just had a question. The last one, number 7, it says to be determined, the board will be apprised of when that position is filled or appointed? And do you have a time frame for that?
Ms. Roaring is working on that item, so that should be filled shortly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on that item? Roll call.
Mr. Levinstein? Yes. Ms. Paletti? Yes. Mr. Straight Iron?
Yes.
Ms. Boulay?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. DeRay? Yes. Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Yes. Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Item 2.12. I have a motion and a second. Ms. Boulay.
Just for the public as well as myself, why do we have an official newspaper? Can someone just explain what is an official newspaper?
Yeah, Mr. Shaw.
Every district is required to have an official paper. Things you would do, for example, is when letting bids, you would advertise them in your official paper or papers.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions on that item? Roll call.
Ms. Paletti? Yes. Mr. Straight Iron?
Yes.
Ms. Boulay?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. DeRay? Yes. Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Yes. Mr. Lamar? Yes. Mr. Levinstein?
I have a motion and a second on 2.13, item 2. Any questions on that item? I actually have a question. It says the Board of Education authorizes the superintendent of schools or her designee to approve or disapprove all conference requests which do not necessitate an overnight stay. I would like to see that language slightly changed because I understand that the Board of Education also needs to approve those conference requests. Can we have better language on that so that this has to have the board's approval on all conference requests? Right now, it's a little unclear. Mr. Shaw?
Right now, if you're budgeted for that, with this resolution, the superintendent would have the authority to make it happen. What you're suggesting is to reserve to the board the authority to make it happen.
That's right. Anybody have any questions or comments on that? Ms. Green?
Don't we normally, it comes to us anyway for it to be approved anyway? I'm just asking, we normally get that information to approve or disapprove stuff like that, don't we?
Right
I'm
now,
just-
the committees, it's brought for the committees to review,
Right,
and still the board votes on them at the board meeting. But I would
Right.
like the language in here to also state that, because right now it's a little unclear, that the superintendent can approve the preliminary approval of the conference request, and then the final approval is at the board. Mr.
Okay.
Forget.
thank you.
Possible example, if a teacher or an administrator wants to do a day conference to a BOCES workshop, this authorizes the superintendent to approve the teacher or the administrator to do the day conference that doesn't require an overnight stay. What I'm hearing proposed is that be removed in all conferences, whether day or overnight must be approved by the board, is what I hear Mr. Stridiron proposing. Is that correct, Mr. Stridiron?
That's correct. Dr. Camp?
So I need to have some clarity on why that's being proposed within my authority as a superintendent of schools. If teachers or administrators are requesting to go to a conference, I'm not sure why it would need board approval. I think that's what I do, right? So this is the educational body of the organization. This is to approve courses. So if we have to wait oftentimes to approve courses, sometimes we run out of time for administrators and teachers to attend conferences.
Mr. Howard?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. We do vote on conference requests overnight out of state, but I think this particular item is between meetings where we don't meet, and a request may come from a teacher or someone in the district, and as the superintendent, it gives her the authority to make that decision. Are we removing that from her?
Oh, I actually thought we approved conferences that were day conferences as well as part of the agendas. I believe I've seen that before, but if not, nope, okay. I'll remove that request then. Going to keep it as is. Anybody have any questions? Let's do a roll call.
Mr. Stridiron?
Yes.
Ms. Boulay? Yes. Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray? Yes. Ms. Green? Yes. Mr. Howard? Yes. Mr. Lamar? Yes. Mr. Levinstein? Yes. Ms. Paletti?
Yes.
Item number 5 of 2.13, can I have a motion and a second to add?
So moved.
Second.
I have a question. Any questions on this one? I have a question. This one requires gives the authority to the superintendent to transfer up to $200,000 in accordance to the regulations of the Commissioner of Education. Could someone explain exactly the types of transfers for those items? Mr. Shaw?
No, Ms. Lakash, Marguerite.
Hello, thank you, Mr. President. The superintendent of schools is authorized and he must certify all the payrolls, so it's an annual SED requirement, and also the transfers that have under $200,000 requirement that before they go to the board, they get approved by the superintendent. Anything over $200,000 gets approved by the Board of Education. Yes, absolutely. Like if the board authorizes a purchase of certain item that needs a transfer, then the superintendent is authorized, and the funds are not available at the moment. The superintendent is authorized anything under $200,000 to transfer to that line, so we can do business as usual.
Are those items put into the financial records for approval at the next board meeting?
We keep every single financial record in a finance office and a business office that is accessible for the auditors and anybody who wants to foil them. So everything accessible is in a business office. All the records of every transfer stay in a business office. Thank you.
Any other questions? Ms.
I'm
Pillay?
just confused on that answer. So does the board see that information? Or do we have to come to your office to see it?
The board policy requires that all the transfers over $200,000 have to be approved by the Board of Education. Anything under that, it's approved by the superintendent of schools, and it's based on the policy.
Thank you.
Mr. Lamar?
If a transfer under $200,000 is made, does the board become aware of that at some point in time in the future?
So all transfers that happen in a fiscal manner are reviewed. That's a part of our Audit and Finance Committee. It's also reviewed by our internal and external auditors. So everything is reviewed in accordance with state law.
Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Ms. Boulay? Yes. Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray? Ms. Green? Yes. Mr. Howard? Yes. Mr. Lamar? Yes. Mr. Levinstein? Yes. Ms. Paletti? Yes. Mr. Straight-Iron?
Yes. Item 2.14, number 2 and 3. Can I have a motion and a second, please? So on this item here, has BOE member to be determined and BOE standing committee memberships. If we don't approve those tonight, how does that get approved by the board?
So for the Teacher Center, you can approve that at the next meeting, or for the Newburgh Teacher Center, you can approve it at any meeting in the upcoming. I don't believe the first meeting would be in September, I believe. So we have a little time for that.
As far as the committee memberships, if we don't approve today and we have a meeting of a committee before the next board meeting, is that going to be an issue with the legality of the committee to meet? Mr. Shaw?
You'd have to look at their bylaws to see when they could meet, whether a board member presence is necessary. So you need to review the bylaws.
We do have tentative committee assignments ready for tonight. If we can revisit this item, or if we can approve this now and just approve, or give the committee assignments out at this meeting, is that going to be proper?
You could do that by a motion to amend the TBD to name a person.
I make a motion to amend this item based on the committee list that I am handing to the board clerk right now. Do we have to read all the names? How would we do that?
For the standing committees, you would read the names, but first you have the issue of the board member on the Teacher Center, right? Which is under 2. You're ahead to number 3 at this
So the
point.
board member on the Teacher Center is Deborah Boulay.
So that would be your motion to amend the TBD to make it Deborah Brulé.
Can I have a motion and a second to amend? Roll call to amend?
Mr. Howard? Yes. Mr. Lamar? Yes. Mr. Levinstein? Yes. Ms. Paletti? Yes. Mr. Straight-Iron?
Yes.
Ms. Boulay? Yes. Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray? Yes. Ms. Green? Yes.
And item number 3, the standing committees. I have a list of tentative assignments. Would we have to vote on this sheet as it is, or how would we get this approved?
You could vote on these assignments pending potential changes at a future board meeting, if you wanted to do that.
So we would make a motion to amend in that language?
Right.
I make a motion to amend this item pending changes to the committee assignments at a future meeting. Can I have a motion and a second?
And read the names.
Read all the names?
Yeah.
Policy Committee, Chair Deb Boulay, Co-Chair Ryan Lamar, Straight-Iron. Curriculum, Co-Chair, Curriculum Chair Paletti, Co-Chair Boulay, Green. Personnel, Chair Lamar, Co-Chair Bergarelli, Boulay. I'll give you a list. Facilities/security, Chair Bergarelli, Co-Chair Lamar, Duray. Exceptional Learners, Chair Boulay, Co-Chair Stridiron, Lamar. Finance, Chair Bugarelli, Co-Chair Green, Boulay. Diversity and Equity, Chair Politi, Co-Chair Levenstein, Green. Library, Chair Levenstein, Co-Chair Howard, DeRay. Human Rights Committee, which is a new committee which we are required to have by law, Chair Lamar, Co-Chair Boulay, Howard. What about the non-board committees?
If it's a standing board committee, that's what you've mentioned. If it's not a board committee, then it wouldn't be part of this resolution.
Okay, it's a standing committee. Health and Safety, Bugarelli. Newburgh Teacher Center, which is Boulay, which we did before. Save Committee is Politi, and Wellness is Howard. Can I make a motion to amend as read? Roll call, please.
Ms. Paletti? Yes. Mr. Stridiron?
Yes.
Ms. Boulay? Yes. Mr. Borgarelli?
Yes.
Mr. DeRay? No. Ms. Green? Yes. Mr. Howard?
No.
Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Levenstein?
Yes.
We have finished with items 2. Now we begin the regular business meeting. We are at the point of the meeting where we have public and comment on agenda items. I would like to ask the board for permission to move the non-agenda items to the section as well, so that the people that are waiting here, just in case they want to speak, they don't have to wait so long till the end of the meeting. Is that okay? Good? Okay. We will do that, and we'll get the list from our clerk in a minute. As stated in previous meetings, this is not a question and answer session, but with new regulations or permission from the board, every question that the public has will be answered within 3 business days. If you submit an email, we will email it to you, but it'll also be on the district website under the Board of Ed section. Thank you. Would anybody like to speak on agenda items? We'll move to non-agenda items. Mr. Ray Harvey.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, Mr. President, Superintendent, rest of the board members, distinguished guests. I sat right there, and I listened to all these committees, and I listened to people trying to take power from my superintendent. I'm not happy at all. And I'm going to make sure the community knows what's going on at this board, right? Because we pay this superintendent to do a job. Let her do her job. You work with her. You make sure she's doing her job correctly. Not coming in here trying to undermine what she's trying to do in this district. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. I'm retired now, so I got plenty of time to be here. And not just at the board member, but to be in the school. The last meeting, the superintendent brought up securing some safety issues at the high school. And I had board members shooting that down when that's something the community asked her to do. Right? If people that came to the debate or the forum that we had they would have known that's what was being asked by the community, but they didn't show up. If you want to know what's going on in the community, show up in the community. Don't stay in your little houses out in the town of Newburgh, New Windsor, wherever you live. I don't care at this point. Because, see, I try to play nice. But I see that playing nice doesn't work anymore. Right? And so we got black and brown skinned kids who's not graduating. That's what we should be focusing on. We should be working hand in hand with the superintendent and her administrative to make sure that we are correcting what's going on, right? Not coming here trying to undermine her, not coming out here. I'm the president of the NAACP. If my executive board ever does something like that to me, I will make sure I call my state president and have them removed. Because what we talk in the executive, that's why it's the executive board meeting. What we want the public to know, we let that happen. You approved her to be the superintendent. Some of you did. Most of you did. Let her do a job. Work with her, man. What's the problem? What's the problem? All of y'all want to be teachers, and if you want to do a job, go back to school. Get the degree, and then apply for her job. If you want to do the lawyer's job, go back to school, get your degree, and become a lawyer. But don't sit here and Monday morning quarterback, as we called it. This stuff been going on in the district since I got here in 1982. If you really want to look at something, look at the lawsuit that NAACP filed against the school district and won. And see if any of them things be happening. Instead of filing a lawsuit as a sitting president, I'm coming after you because it's about money. I sit here and I listen over and go again about the Padilla 6 and how much money we gave Padilla and so forth and so on. Yet we got a sitting president who's got a lawsuit against my school district. And I don't hear nothing about that. Why not? Why not? I'm tired, man. I'm tired of this backdoor, this craziness, when we should be focusing on education. Everybody sit here and say, well, we're here for the kids. Well, show up and be for the kids. Work with the superintendent. Work with her staff. Try to get the job done that you are elected to get done, right? And stop trying to undermine her. You know, stop it, because it's not going to work. Because I will turn the dogs loose, and they will come if that's what you want me to do. Thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak on non-agenda items? Thank you. State your name, please.
My name is Sabrina Dahlfinger. I am a teacher in the school district. I just wanted to say, first of all, welcome to the new board members. I do hope that when you start making decisions about the school district, about the kids in the school district, that you have the kids in mind, not some prior agenda that is, as Mr. Harvey said, going to undermine what happens in the school. I listened to the committee meetings, the members, and I'm a little concerned that it seems that the people who are on the committees don't represent the black and brown kids in the district, with the exception of the library committee, which, as my daughter has been in library for a long time, is not an inconsequential committee. However, when we talk about diversity and equity and the other committees, they've been erased from the committee because of what? Mr. Howard is out in the community. He does work with the students, the young black men, the black and brown men in the district. He deserves the respect of this board. To put him on a committee that doesn't represent the work that he does, that tells me that you are not here to bring the community together. It tells me that you are here for a specific agenda, to punish him for some wrong that you felt that he did by voting in a certain way. If we were going to be doing that with every board member who made a decision that people don't like, we would not be a functioning board. You need to make decisions about who is going to be on committees based on their record and what they do for kids, not their political position, what they do for the kids, because that's who we're here for, the kids. And if you can't do that, if you can't put your feelings aside, then you should not be on this board. I hope going forward that you take that in mind, that while people may think that the people, Mr. Howard on this board, they feel like he has done something because he voted in a certain way, that he doesn't deserve his position here. He does. And as Mr. Harvey said, we will make sure that the decisions that you're making, the new people on this board, the people who were already elected to this board are making decisions solely based on that, the students and the families of the NECSD community. I have been in this district. I went to this school district. I don't live in this school district, but I work here. I chose to work in this district because I wanted to give back. And I believe that we need to make sure that we are giving Dr. Manning Campbell the respect that she deserves as a human being, not as a black woman. She gets that anyway. But as a human being, as a professional, allowing her to do her job and not questioning her and her power in a way that appears to us as very demeaning. Thank you.
Anybody else would like to speak on non-agenda items?
Yes, I would like to speak, Mr. President.
Mr. Howard.
First and foremost, I want to thank Ms. Dolfinger for those kind words. And it's obvious what's going on here tonight. And I'm going to say, as the president of the board, that is your right. That is your decision to make those committee assignments. But I would like to say also, the work that I do in this community, the work that I do in this district, the work I have done in my life, working with young children, particularly children of color, and Caucasian inclusion included, will never be stopped. You can't stop that. You can continue to do what you're doing. You can continue with the assignments. And I think it's an affront to what we do or what we have done in this community, what I will continue to do. I will continue to do it when I'm off the board, because I'm from the city of Newburgh, born and raised, been here for 61 years, and these kids are my heart. If you are a goldback, you are part of my heart. So you cannot stop that with your assignments, because I will continue to do the work that I do in this community. It's very obvious with the assignments you made what this was about. and I want to congratulate you on that. But it will not stop me from doing the work that I do, and it will not stop me from being here for the kids in this Newburgh and Large City School District. My work speaks for itself. My work speaks for itself. I'm in the streets night and day. I'm in the community with kids who don't have homes, don't have heat in their homes, don't have air conditioning, don't have food to eat. I'm in the streets every day. And these kids are our goldbacks. I make constant calls to the superintendent about issues going on in this community to try to help the scholars in this community. And I will continue to do that. I will continue to be an advocate, a champion, and a hero for the scholars in this district. It's not a committee assignment that makes me who I am. It's my heart. And it's where I come from. And I want to say thank you very much, Ms. Dolfinger, for those kind words. And just understand and know, Phil Howard is here. Phil Howard will always be here for our kids. And I will continue to do the work that I have done for the last 11 years, coming up on my 12th year on the school board. So I say congratulations on your committee appointments. And I look forward to working on the library committee. Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak on non-agenda items? Mr. DeRay.
Based on the community assignments, it's pretty clear what the agenda is. My comments are very short. I think you should be embarrassed. Thank you.
Anybody else like to make any non-agenda item comments? All right, we'll move on to the Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Manning Campbell.
First and foremost, I'd like to welcome our newly sworn-in Board of Education members. The oath that you took earlier this meeting reminds our entire school district community that each of our trustees work for the betterment for all of our scholars, whether their families voted for you personally, voted for someone else, or voted at all. Thank you for joining our dedicated employees in our mission to provide a quality education to all of our scholars. Our Board of Education members are very popular and become very inundated and overwhelmed with those reaching out with items that they are likely unable to address individually. We ask that, if contacted, you share questions or concerns with me directly so I can direct the matter to be appropriately addressed. Similarly, it is important that our Board of Education members are familiar with Board of Education policies regarding communication. Next, I would like to propose a new structure for our Board of Education meetings. As I reflect on my first year as your superintendent, I believe we must address some of the feedback we have received from community members, Board of Education members, and executive team members. Allow me to be specific. We regularly receive requests for transparency, and we would like to provide explicit and direct communication while affording time for the executive team to share their justification and professional rationale for resolutions. It is my belief that holding 2 business meetings each month may be more of a detriment than a benefit. The implication that we need to just get things approved without allowing time for an engaging conversation between the Board of Education and the executive team must be addressed. In speaking with Mr. Forget, our Deputy Superintendent, he shared a very successful structure that was implemented by Dr. Annette Saturnelli, a former superintendent. The model included 1 workshop meeting and 1 business meeting each month. I can provide some examples of other districts in New York that use this model as well, if needed. The monthly workshop meeting would be a meeting where the executive team presents in detail resolutions that will be placed on the monthly BOE business meeting. Each resolution must be presented with a rationale and brief presentation by the executive team member. Board members are encouraged to engage in a dialogue with the executive team to gather the necessary information to inform their decision at the business meeting. This will afford the executive team additional time to collect and research information requested by Board of Education members so they make an informed decision with regards to the resolution. At a workshop session, there will be no public comment and very little action, with the exception of emergency items on an as-needed basis. The committees that will be held prior to monthly workshop would include curriculum, diversity, equity, inclusion, and policy. In the time between the workshop meeting and the business meeting, we will hold the personnel, audit and finance, facilities, and library committee meetings. The value added to this updated model would include greater transparency for trustees in our community, improved communication, time for additional school presentations, and tighter internal controls, to name a few. At this time, I would like to ask Mr. Stradian for a consensus on my request for a monthly workshop and business meeting. Thank you.
Board members, any questions about this format? I think the board members, since they just received this, would like to take this into consideration, and we have a meeting in about a week and a half. I think we'd take the time to look at it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lamar, you had a question?
The way you phrased it, if there were to be the organizational meeting and something needed to be addressed in a timely manner, there would just be a section of that meeting that would be treated as a regular meeting? Yeah.
Do you have any other items, Dr. Kim? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will need to discuss dates and times for the President and Vice President weekly meeting with me and our Deputy Superintendent.
I think Thursdays, the week before the meeting is standard practice. I'm not sure if that works for Mr. Boulay, so we have to take a look at that. And what time do you normally meet?
So that depends, sometimes 9. It depends on the day, because Mr. Howard does a lot of volunteer work in the schools. So sometimes those meetings were 1 to 2 or 9 in the morning.
All right, we'll discuss it and get back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I have like a couple more before you go. We would also like to know the interest of the board members in participating in a retreat with the executive team.
We haven't had the chance as a board to discuss this, and we'll have to come together as a board soon. Maybe at the next board meeting, we can have an open discussion about that.
Thank you. Finally, we would also like to know the goals of the Board of Education so that I can adjust the expectation of my team as needed.
The board will be discussing its goals over the next few weeks to develop them so that the strategic plan and any other plans are in accordance with the board goals.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Forger will be presenting item 5.2 of my section, the final draft of the NECSD strategic plan from 2023 to 2026, every goal back, every day.
Thank you, Dr. Campbell. Thank you, members of the Board of Education. We are ready to present to you a draft of the new strategic plan for the district and hoping to get some input and feedback from the Board of Education members. Our new strategic plan, the process that we used was kind of designed and developed based on research of how to conduct strategic planning. Why a new strategic plan when Imagine 2025 has not sunset yet? We haven't implemented the current strategic plan. A lot happened after Imagine 2025 was created. So we hired a new superintendent who has completed her first year and is prepared to share her long-term expectations for this district. Dr. Campbell spent an enormous amount of time connecting with the community, faculty, staff, engaging in dialogue with the executive team. I almost said senior. Executive team to talk a little bit about what's going on and what she has hoped to see change for the future in the best interest of our student population. As we continue in this post-pandemic environment, the needs of our students, faculty, staff, and families have drastically changed. What was in 2019 is not the same as it is right now. People are confronted with very different problems, very different obstacles than in the past, and we have to be able to respond to that and react to it. Literacy and numeracy readiness of a large percentage of our students has totally diminished. So preparedness of students entering school, we're finding that they're coming in with less of an opportunity to engage immediately with the curriculum and the instruction. And it's our job to figure out how to do that and catch them up. That's our work. That's who we are as educators. The capacity of our faculty and staff to address social, emotional, mental health, and academic readiness needs is being challenged. We have new needs. We have new demands placed upon us. And how do we support families to address those needs in the home as well as delivering that instruction in the classroom? These are all new things. These are things that were also issues in the past, but they're exacerbated now as a result of being in the post-pandemic. Based on feedback from the community members and families, just listen to the feedback we hear at board meetings and the emails and the messages we receive in central office. We must establish a true commitment to transforming this district into one that we will now be recognized for high academic standards as well as highly competitive athletics, fine and performing arts. It's all three. It's not one of the three, it's all three. So it's really critical, based on creating this new strategic plan, that we keep our eye on these changes that have occurred. Next slide. So who created this strategic plan? Dr. Campbell? Myself? Absolutely not. This was a 72-member team that helped to design this strategic plan. I'm telling you, it was 72 people that engaged in this process. Normally, a strategic planning team is about 10, maybe 12 people. We said, no, we have to have representation from the entire community. So Dr. Campbell mandated that each of the executive team members participate in the sessions. We worked with the administrators unit. We worked with the civil service bargaining unit. I saw Mr. Fisher here a few minutes ago. We worked with the Teachers Association. We worked with parents and guardians, and the FACE department secured those individual members. We worked with community partners and colleges and universities. And I can promise you that the individuals that created this strategic plan represented the stakeholders within our district. There were special education representation. It was based on race, ethnicity, English language learners. It was really designed, and the members of the team that created this plan, I would say, to the greatest extent possible, represent the student population in our school district. That's critical in strategic planning. So participants will be selected based on the Newburgh Enlarged City School District Strategic Plan, decision-making plan. So we have a shared decision-making plan. That shared decision-making plan governs the way this particular plan was created. So what did we look at? How did we determine this? We did a data dive. We looked at the New York State accountability status for each of our schools and the district as a whole. We looked at the ESSA indicators. We looked at performance on the elementary grades 3 through 8 and middle school assessments for math and ELA and science. We looked at the district demographics and the trends that have occurred over the past several years. We looked at performance on the English and the math regions. We looked at social emotional learning needs based on our data collected through Panorama. We looked at attendance for students, faculty, and staff. We looked at ELA standards analysis. It's one thing to say we have 30% of our students performing at standard, but where are the standards we really need to focus on in ELA and math? We even went as far as looking at and doing a deep dive into what's the standards in ELA we really need to focus on, and what are the standards in math we need to focus on. We did strategic planning surveys to collect perceptual data. We had 112 community members respond and 123 faculty and staff respond. And we even went as far as creating focus groups at the high school, where 44 students participated in a variety of different focus groups that were facilitated by our Director of Communications as well as our Director of Planning and Accountability. All of this information was gathered, collected, and analyzed. So, every gold back every day is now the name of the strategic plan that we propose, because it's about every gold back. And as we heard Mr. Howard speak, gold backs aren't just today. Gold backs are forever. So whether you are an employee, whether you are a student, whether you are a family that just moved in, we welcome you. We want you to participate and support us in our school district to create positive outcomes for our students. but we want it done every day, not just once in a while. So every gold back, every day. It's all good. It's all good. We have a backup plan. Let's go to slide 7. So in slide 7, we've got the mission statement, the vision statement, and core values. Actually, this took an entire day to come up with these particular statements. This is not an easy task. For those of you that have done strategic planning, this can be very frustrating, or it can be really exciting and fun. Thankfully, it was exciting and fun. So the mission statement, as the Goldback community, we will educate and empower our students to build their futures and support their community. Our vision statement, creating voice, choice, and opportunity for impacting the future of all Goldbacks. And our core values, we are forever Goldbacks. In the present, we are inclusive, everyone's voice is heard. In the past, we are resilient, bouncing back from every challenge. And in the future, we will continue to grow together. That is the current mission, vision, and core values that we propose to move us into 2026 under the direction of our new superintendent, Dr. Manning Campbell. So now we have some standards. Goldback standard number 1, we must, and these were all derived from analyzing the data, triangulating that data so that we weren't making decisions just based on academic achievement, not just based on demographic achievement, not just school process, taking all the sources of data, combining them and looking at them, and finding some patterns and trends that need to be addressed. Our Goldback standard 1, student-designed instruction. It's got to be about the kids. What are the things that our data tells us we really need to focus on? We need to teach a parallel curriculum to general education classrooms in every special class environment. So in our self-contained special education environments, we need to make sure that they have access to the same opportunities for learning that our students that are having in general education classrooms. We need to adopt effective practices supporting integrated co-teaching models to be implemented across the district. ICT and the least restrictive environment is critical. But we have to make sure that the instruction that's being provided in those classrooms meets the needs of the students. So we need to figure out what's the model that we want, what's the professional development that's needed, and how do we support our teachers to co-teach so that we're not just using one model of one teach, one drift, or one teach, one observe. How do we provide professional development to teachers and administrators that will increase their capacity to support our English language learners? Very high population in our district, very high need population in our district. How do we, as a faculty and staff, address the needs of these students through the lesson planning and delivery of instruction? Got to be a focus. How do we are going to explore the impact poverty has on improved student learning and adopt effective practice needs. When you look at the way the state collects data, they collect it based on race, ethnicity, disability status, English language learner status, poverty, a variety of different measures. A lot of students are collected in the same subpopulation. When you look at the impact poverty has on the performance of our student, it transcends across multiple subpopulations. We as a district have not really done a real good job at, as a district, researching how poverty impacts the life of a child in a school. How do we make sure that students that are arriving at school have the same resources? They shouldn't be disciplined, and they shouldn't be treated differently because they're not walking in with the same backpack filled with resources. How do we fix that? And how do we support those parents as well? So when we look at this particular piece, I think this is critical, really understanding poverty and doing something about it through classroom instruction. and then expand learning opportunities for students who would benefit from accelerated learning opportunities. There are some students that are sitting in our classrooms and they're bored, and they're not being challenged. We have to figure out a way to create an educational opportunity for students who they get it. How do we loop them out of that and put them into a very challenging, highly rigorous opportunity so they're addressed as well? It's not just about one student. It's addressing the needs of all of our students. So Goldbach standard number 2, student-centered staff. It's got to be about the kids. We all went into education because of kids. We stay in education because of our kids. So our faculty and staff in central office will be recruiting highly qualified teachers, staff, and administrators that reflect the demographic makeup of our student body. There will be a focus on that. There will be a focus on assessing the quality and implementation of the various performance evaluation systems for all teachers, staff, and administrators, and annually review the data generated from each of those systems. It's one thing to have a teacher evaluation system and to provide scores to an individual, but what are we doing with that data? There's rich data there. How do we take and we learn from what those observations really tell us about what's happening in those classrooms, and then figuring out a district-wide professional development opportunity to improve the capacity of individuals? The same thing with our leadership. We have a principal evaluation system, but do we use that as a score, or do we use it as a capacity growth model if we look at that data and figure out where collectively our principals could do better and support them to grow instead of just saying, you fit into this category? That's something we feel that we can really do a better job at and really have an impact on students as a result of it. And how do we sustain effective teachers, staff, and administrators through the provision of professional development, focusing on reflective practice, implementation of pipeline, and new employee mentoring programs? So how do we maintain and sustain a strong, highly capable staff that meets the needs of our students? That's Goldbach Standard 2. Goldbach Standard number 3, pretty simple. This is a high priority. We heard this from all of the board members last year. We heard this from Dr. Manning Campbell regularly. And we hear it from all the administrators in our units. Achieve 95% attendance rate for all students, teachers, staff, and administrators. Not just by saying we want you here 95% of the time, but figure out strategies to make it happen. Figure out incentives to make that happen. We can't just say, we want you to come to school. How do we help you to understand the importance of school and the benefit coming for instruction will have on your future? And how do we teach and grow our community to understand the impact of that? And how do we live by that by saying, we don't want your kids home, we want them in school. We don't want your students on South Street, we want them on Fullerton Avenue in Newburgh Free Academy. It's more important for us to see them in those schools. How do we start to do that? Has to be a focus. Goldbach Standard number 4, safe and supportive school climate. We heard a community members talk about that tonight. So we need to focus on engagement, defined as strong relationships between students, teachers, families, and schools, and create strong connections between the schools and the broader community. How do we invite the community in to support the education in the schools in the classroom? How do we protect our students that are in those schools in a safe and healthy environment, social, emotionally, as well as resources? How do we focus on, the second is the focus on safety, defined as school and school-related activities where students are safe from violence, bullying, harassment, and controlled substance use. Has to be a priority. Has to be a priority immediately. The pandemic has wreaked havoc on this. Creating a supportive environment defined by appropriate facilities, classrooms that embrace clear and consistent expectations for behavior, and actions to promote positive, pro-social behaviors, available school-based health supports, and a code of conduct that eliminates disproportionate treatment of our diverse population. How do we do all this? We have 3 years to do it. What's the next standard? There shouldn't be one. Right? Mark, that's it, right? Okay. So what are the next steps with this? A lot of work went into this. The next steps for us, we need to adopt this as our strategic plan. Then we need to begin to say, So what work has to take place in order for us to achieve these standards? And what are the qualitative and quantitative measures that we're going to adopt in order to help us monitor the implementation of our efforts to show true impact on student living? This is the beginning of our strategic plan, a little bit different from the way we've rolled out in the past. It's a true collaborative effort on our part. We're hoping for some feedback from you as a Board of Education, but 72 people worked really hard to get us to this point. Our next job, as I stated, what are the qualitative and quantitative measures that are aligned with each of these standards? Questions from the board?
Any board members have any questions on this plan? Mr. Howard?
Yes, Mr. President, I'm sorry. So, all go back, I love that. I love that new mantra. I love it. But it leads to my question. We say all go back. Do we truly mean all go backs? I know you do. I know the superintendent does. But what do you need from this board to actually make that work? Because when we say all go backs every day, we're talking about children that come to our buildings every day, not prepared, not ready to learn. Not because of their faults, but because of where they come from, where they live, the environments in which they come from. Are we ready to start impacting that part of their lives? Because if we don't fix that, or if we don't find a way to address those issues, it sounds good, but our video will not match our audio. All go backs every day will not work. And I know that you guys have incredible plans in place, but when we say all, understand, we're a high-need school district. So the majority of our school district are kids coming from poverty. I see it every day. I see it every day. And we as a board, we as a district, we got to understand that when we say fix the system, fix what we have, because when that tide rises, all boats float better. And the bottom line, let's talk about, I hate to use the term, the white elephant in the room, but boys of color, specifically black boys, are failing at high rates. They are not getting what they need to be successful. I know we're trying to get there, but how do we get there? What can we do as a board to help you with that mission statement, with those standards, make it work? And let me say this. Recently, I had an incident where I ran into a parent, and the child was having some problems, some issues in school. And I took the kid aside, and I spoke with him for about a half hour. We had a great conversation. I also had some books in my car. So I went to my car, and I brought the books to the parent, and I said, I want you to
Need a moment, Mr. Howard?
I want you to read these books to your son. And at some point in time, I want him to read them back to you. I apologize. Okay, but the student was a kid from our district that was having issues in school. And a part of that population of the high rate of disproportionality of suspensions and expulsions of young black boys of color. But the strange thing about this was that I sat there with that young boy, that young child, for a half hour, 45 minutes. This kid was beautiful kid. And it hit me. We need to get more mentors for these young boys. They need to see people that look like them, that can relate to them. Be that be an Asian kid, be that be a Latino kid, be that be an African American kid, be that be a Hispanic kid. But we got to get mentors in these buildings in our district that help these young boys. Because I'm going to tell you this. If you look at this kid's record and the kid that I spoke to for a half hour, totally different. We got to do better. We got to do better. Like, we talk about early literacy, how important early literacy is, and I know there's something we want to address here. And we talk about the impact of early literacy and how it helps young people strive and how to help them be great. But we talk about when they get to us as pre-K. But the real issue is 0 to 4. How do we as a district impact that group? How do we make sure that these parents have the necessary resources to start early literacy with these kids from 0 to 4? Because when we wait till they're 4 years old, there's a significant difference between children who are from a household or an environment where there was early literacy that was promoted in that household and kids that did not have that opportunity. How do we, as a district, Mr. Forget and Dr. Campbell, how do we impact that population? Understand that we come from a high needs community. How do we help children that need help? And I'm going to tell you, that young child that I worked with, that I spoke with, he's a genius. But if you look at the record doesn't say that. It took an individual to actually care about him and actually relate to him. And if we can do that with more of our children, more of the population that we deal with, we're going to fix the problem, Mr. Forget. That tide will be raised and all boats float better. Everybody talk about the bottom line. Bottom line is graduation rates, yes. Bottom line is kids reading on grade level, yes. But if we don't get kids there, it's all for nothing. Because that group, that demographic will never be fixed. But I'm telling you, board members, I'm telling central office, we can do it. We can do it. I know I spoke about what they do in Harlem with the Harlem Children's Zone, and I know that's a charter program, but we can still look outside the box and see some of the things that they do in that 0 to 4 population, because it's from the womb to college. That's what that Harlem Children's Zone is about. I know it's charter, and that's not something that, that's a conversation that we like having up here. But thinking outside the box, we can look at what they do and try to replicate some of that work. Because I'm telling you, if we can get to the children early, before they get to pre-K, it's going to change things. It's going to change the game. It's going to change outcomes for kids. And I love the new strategies. I love the standards. I love all goal-backs every day, because that's me. That's me. I'm a goal-back through and through. And if we truly mean that, we got to be about it. So I guess I'm going to end with the question that I started with. What can we do as a board to help you get that mantra to fruition. Every go back, every day.
So that's
I
our next,
apologize.
no, don't apologize, you're absolutely right, and you did some of the work for us, right? Because you already defined an item that we should be implementing, which is mentoring. And you clearly defined what mentoring meant. It's got to be mentored by pairings that are based on the unique needs of that student so that they have that trust and that engagement that already is established. What are the next steps that we're going to take? We are now going to take these standards and begin to identify the action items that we will be implementing over the course of the first year, aligned with the standards and the bullets that are under each of these gold-back standards. You can't create a strategic plan and just have it really pretty in paper. You have to talk about the actions and the intended impact those actions will have to achieve the standard. That's our next step. So, Mr. Howard, that's where we're moving. After we present this to you tonight, our team will immediately tomorrow morning be working on identifying the actions and the qualitative and quantitative measures that we'll use to monitor the implementation on a quarterly basis.
First, Ms. Paletti, then Ms. Boulay.
So I agree. I think the new strategic plan is great. And I agree with Mr. Howard. I'm a Goldback, married to a Goldback, raising 4 little Goldbacks. We need to be inclusive. Speaking about equity, how do we ensure as a board and at the upper cabinet level that restorative practices are being used with fidelity? Because I think that's a big piece. And for those of you who don't know what restorative practices are, that's just good teaching and being a good person, acting in loco parentis while the children are with us in the schools, getting to know them so that you have a relationship so you can have these teachable moments. And also, how do we know if the SAVE legislation is being enacted? Because that's part of being a good parent, and that's what we have to act as to these children. We have to hold them to high standards, and we also have to create boundaries for them, because we can't just say, oh, their parents need to take responsibility. Sometimes their parents don't have those tools, and not because they don't want to, but because they're dealing with their own trauma or their own language barriers. So I agree with what you're saying, and I think that that's something we really need to look at to make a turnaround and reform and rebuild our district. And speaking also to, the accelerated programs for other students. And I had said this before in a town hall with Mrs. Van before. My students go to Horizons. There is a gifted and talented program there. Why are we not identifying children for that program through iReady scores rather than making them go through loopholes when there might be language barriers or literacy problems with their parents or just inability to contact the school because they work so much? We should be identifying these children and putting them where they need to be to ensure their success rather than making parents who might not have the skills go through these loopholes. So that's my question too. How can we as a board facilitate these changes? Because I am in agreement. I think this is in the right direction.
Thank you. So I heard you talk about restorative practices. So I hear it's important from the board, or at least from Ms. Paletti, that we take a look at where do restorative practices fit into an expected activity within this plan. SAVE legislation and supporting families and students to be able to live up to the SAVE legislation and holding expectations for it. But again, guiding them to meet that standard, not just demanding them to meet that standard. And then the eligibility process for gifted and talented, use your current data, identify ahead of time, even some of the pre-K data we could use. So thank you for sharing that.
Ms. Boulay?
So, Mr. Howard, I want to thank you for showing your heart. I respect that. And I want you to know that I respect that. I may not have been born a Goldback, but I chose this district to be in. I left a very lucrative job to become a teacher on purpose. I come from poverty. I come from a family that had to move every 2-3 months because one of the parents got in trouble. I understand. This is a personal journey for me. Just one more thing on that, as my daughters are in the audience. I have no problem giving away my furniture, gave away my living room set, the only one I had, to a parent from this community who needed it more than I did, and my daughters and I loaded it on the U-Haul. You've touched my heart, and I just want you to know that we are on the same side. I just want to make that clear. In regard to the strategic plan, thank you for all the work. One thing I think we need to be clear about is that it's the Board of Education that develops the vision, right, and the goals for this district that then the superintendent implements. And the decisions that we make have to be based in data. We cannot solve a problem until we identify the problem. I am a big proponent of digging deep, because otherwise we just go in a circle and keep chasing ourselves. Are we willing, or do we have enough courage to do that? I like a lot of what is in here, but I must say that there is no safety in a school unless there is discipline. If that SAVE legislation is being overridden, and you have kids who just revolve in and out, in and out, in and out, we are doing them a disservice. So I would ask you to look at that, and I know you know that there's ways to do that. The only other point I'll make on this, I have several things going through my head, but the one key point is, I worked a lot of years in human resources, and I have never seen an incentive work. This last item, I don't disagree at all that attendance is a problem. If my numbers are correct, we have 3,207 students that are labeled chronically absent out of about 11,000. That's about 30% in my math. That's a problem. But to come up with one of the solutions as being an incentive is not something that I agree with. What if a teacher has cancer? She's not going, or he's not going to get an incentive because they didn't meet some quota for attendance? What if a student had something happen in the family? They will be sitting next to students who get an incentive and they don't? So I think there are other ways to solve this, but I throw that out for you to think about. Thank you.
So I think the next steps for the board would be to, I'm sorry, Mr. Lamar.
Yeah, I just think it's important to say this is very good work. There's a lot of stuff in here. There's a couple things that I have questions about, but more importantly, I think it's, as hard as it was for you to put this together, I think it's very easy to come up with a new list of goals, because sometimes that's a good way to start fresh. And it kind of, but I think it can diminish the hole that we've dug ourselves into already. I think it's very important not just to set new goals to hit and new plans to move forward, but I think we need to recognize the failures that we've made. And I think the things that have been done in the past that have led us to this attendance issue needs to be looked at. I think the things that have been done in the past that have led us to the low literacy and numeracy capacity, there are things we put in place that did not work. And I think it's very important for people to be willing to let go of the things that didn't work so that we can move forward finding things that do work. You don't hold on to something that's not working just because it's hard to change.
Any other board members have any questions or comments? I think the next step is for the board to develop goals over the next 2 weeks and revisit this plan. I mean, I think most of this plan will remain intact. It may be tweaked a little bit. So for now, we're going to continue as a draft, final draft plan, and meet as a board, I believe, in a week and a half. So during that time, I would ask that the board members send in a list of their goals, what they would like to see as a board goal for the next year or 3 years, really, and to be able to supplement this plan or modify it in any way. Yes, Mr. Forget.
So just point of clarification. So the plan obviously was done using data. I can assure you that the 72 people that represent our student population and our school community did pour a lot of time and effort into looking and analyzing the data, maybe not drilling down to a root cause, but they did drill down as pretty far as they could. So just clarification from the board. So the work that was done here is going to be used to inform goals? Is that what I'm hearing, or no?
The board has to develop the goals based on the information that we have right now, plus any information that we ask you for. So there may be a lot of information that's asked tonight that will help develop our goals. Thank you.
I just want to be clear to let the 72 people know which direction we're going.
We're moving forward with the plan that's right now.
Thank you.
It may be revised slightly based on the information that we receive over the next week and a half.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yes, Mr. Howard.
So when you say board goals, and then you have the standards, and then you have the superintendent's goals, everything is supposed to be aligned. Is that correct?
It should be, yes.
So everything should merge. So each goal should be about each department, each group merging together, working on in the same direction for the same purpose. So when you say you want individuals to send you ideas for goals, what is the framework?
Just like every year, the board president asks for input into the board goals that will be finalized at a board meeting.
Yeah, but we had framework with it.
The framework is whatever you think the goals should be. We could have 15 submissions on what the goals should be. Just like every year, I submitted information for goals, you submitted, and I believe it was 4 or 5 that were accepted by the whole board as a goal. We may accept 10 things. We don't know yet. That's part of how a board works, which is our first meeting.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Forget. Lastly, I'm presenting item 5.3 as a consent item for your consideration.
Can I have a motion and a second on this item? Roll call.
Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Levinstein?
Yes.
Ms. Paletti? Yes. Mrs. Straight-Iron?
Yes.
Ms. Boulay?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray? Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes my items for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Manning Campbell. We have item 6.1, a resolution to authorize the board president to execute a retainer agreement with Shaw, Pearlson, May, and Lambert to serve as attorney for the Newburgh Enlarged City School District. Based on our executive session, we actually came to an agreement to amend this item, and do we have to read the motion to amend?
Yes. So you'd look for a motion to amend, to change the term to end December 31, 2023, and to prorate the retainer amount accordingly.
Can I have a motion and a second, please?
Second.
Any questions on this item? I just would like to thank Mr. Shaw for how many years of service for the district?
42.
42 years of service for the board, and I appreciate your professionalism in every aspect of this. I want to thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank the board.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Levinstein? No. Ms. Paletti? Yes. Mrs. Straight-Iron?
Yes.
Ms. Boulay?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
No.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? No. Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
I'd like to add items to the agenda, specifically the special assignment committees working with the superintendent, which is part of the committee assignments that I'd like to have handed out at this point. Can I have a motion to add this item to the agenda?
Second.
Roll call, please. You'll get it in a second. It's special committee assignments.
Can we get it before we vote?
Yep.
Second by Turner.
The special committee assignments are at the bottom of the page that'll work with the superintendent on specific items and report back to committees. So we have a motion and a second on that?
Do you roll call? You want to wait
Uh,
to read? I'm sorry. Could you explain what these are? I'm confused in terms of what they are. I've never seen this before.
These items are board members who will work with you on specific tasks and report back to committees so that we can develop programs and get an overall understanding so that the committees have all the information that they need to make decisions.
How are they different from the committee assignments?
There's a committee, and then there are subcommittees to the committee itself. These people will work as a special assignment for those committees and report back.
So, Mr. President, based on what you just said, you have Howard Curriculum Committee, MBK program, but you have the Curriculum Committee and Howard's not on it.
My special assignment for Mr. Howard, based on all the information I know about Mr. Howard, is that he has a passion for the My Brother's Keeper, My Sister's Keeper program. So what I like to do is to put people in the best situation to succeed for the kids and the district.
No, what I'm saying is it says Curriculum Committee.
You will report back to the curriculum committee based on My Brother's Keeper, because it's not just going to be curriculum committee. It could be any committee associated with My Brother's Keeper, My Sister's Keeper. It could be equity committee. It could be policy committee. Whatever's needed to make the program successful.
All right, it was just, I've never seen this before, and I didn't understand the process.
It's a totally new process. What I would like to do is have you on special assignment where you would help with the superintendent create a elementary school, middle school, My Brother's Keeper, My Sister's Keeper program. Every single school, so that every school will be part of this program that you would help develop. As a board assignment, you would help the superintendent and then report back to the committees.
This is, we're just going to seek some clarity. This is very confusing. Dr. Freeman Matt, could you respond?
My Brother's Keeper, My Brother's Keeper is a grant. It is a grant by the state of New York. The My Brother's Keeper Fellow Program is a paid-for grant that is specified for 4 students. What you're asking, sir, we don't have funding for. What we are looking to do is to create chapters within all of our schools on a voluntary basis, but it's never been part of a committee.
I understand that.
It's not
By
that.
developing this new program, Mr. Howard can help the board get as much information as possible to be able to
Sir,
secure fund.
It's not a new program. It's already developed.
I'm talking about the elementary school program,
We have it already.
but he's not developed fully yet. Mr. Howard can help fully develop that program, report back to the board, and be able to do anything necessary to make sure that program is fully successful in every single elementary school. Roll call
Excuse me,
to
I'm
add this
sorry.
item to the agenda.
Could you just give us an explanation of what the expectations are for these committees? Because I'm very confused. I think we're all confused, so we don't know what this means. This seems like it's outside of committee assignments. I've never seen anything like this, so
I know
am
you haven't
very
seen anything like this because we haven't tried anything new. This is a way for the board to be able to get information, to help develop programs with you so that we can be successful.
Okay, last thing I want to say, Mr. President. So as I look at your assignments, every assignment that you have, those people are on those committees, except me.
The task that you will be performing is very intensive. I could
I
put
just
you
need
on.
clarification. I'm not trying to be
Yeah.
a stickler. I'm
trying
I
to
don't
put you in the
understand
best scenario to succeed. I can't believe I'm getting pushback from putting you in charge of it and my brother's
We're not
keeper,
going
my
to play that
sister's
game,
keeper
Mr.
program.
President. I'm not giving you pushback. I'm looking for clarification, understanding exactly what you need. As I look at the other special assignments, each individual that you have reporting to those committees are on those committees.
It's a special assignment. You don't have to accept it if you don't want to.
Okay, all right, thank you.
No, it's not pulling out of the air. This was created before this was on this motion. We have a second and a motion, please. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lev.
We're voting to add it to the agenda?
Yes, to add it
To
to
add
the
it to the-
agenda.
Add this part to the agenda to discuss. If
Mr. Levinstein? I'm sorry? No. Ms. Paletti? Yes. Mr. Straight Iron?
Yes.
Ms. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Burgarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray? Ms. Green? Yes. Mr. Howard? No. Mr. Lamar?
Yes. Any questions on these items? Actually, I'm going to read them. Mr. Howard, reporting back to Curriculum Committee, that could be revised to any other committee that would need assistance in understanding what the program is going to be. For My Brother's Keeper, My Sister's Keeper program at the elementary level. Mr. Burgarelli is facilities, reports back to facilities, overall review of security and code of conduct implementation. Ms. Boulay, exceptional learners, overall review of the exceptional learners and CSEA processes. Ms. Boulay, personnel, overall review of the HR processes. Mr. Levinstein, library, overall review of in-school library resources and utilization. The second item I would like to add, yes. Oh, motion and a second, please, to approve this special assignments.
No, I need a second.
Roll call, please. We can discuss more if you'd like. No, you can discuss it now if you'd like. It's helpful for the board to understand what exactly is needed. So if we have someone from the board working directly with the superintendent on these specific issues, the board member can report back to the committee on a regular basis to inform the committee so that that committee can make the proper decisions and that the whole board can make decisions. It's facilitating information for the board.
I just need to, for me, overall review of HR processes, what does that look like coming from a board member?
As far as which one? HR processes? As far as personnel?
Yes, so
It
tell
would-
me what that would look like.
It would basically be reviewing what processes you have in place. I guess it's through regulations or whatever processes you have for hiring, so that the HR, the personnel committee can make decisions on if we need to make changes or help in any other way. It's for the board to get information so that we can make things better.
So
Mr.
what's,
Howard.
I'm sorry, so what's my role as a superintendent?
No,
No?
it's not about that. It's about the board getting information so we can make the right decisions. You still are in control of the day-to-day operations.
Oh, thank
The board just needs information.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Howard?
Yeah, okay, so I'm not trying to be dunce, and I need you to walk me through this. You have Bugarelli, facilities, overall review, security code of conduct, implementation. And they did a report back to the committees. Bugarelli, facilities committee. He's the chair. Okay. Boulay, exceptional learners. Boulay. Boulay, personnel. Boulay is on that committee. Levenstein, library. He chairs that committee. So I'm confused with how you have Howard reporting to a committee that he's not on. Was that a mistake?
No, because I know that the program that's for the My Brother's Keeper at the elementary level is a very big assignment, and I know that it's something that you can do great at. You don't have to be part of that committee to be.
I'm MBK every day, all the way.
That's great.
I'm
then this will
always,
work
but
out
I'm
wonderful.
confused with this, how you put this together.
I know change is hard, but this is going to be helpful.
Because MBK goes through Dr. Mack. She's responsible for that program in the district. She reports to the superintendent.
MBK is also, it involves a lot of different things besides it involves a lot of different things that you can report
Okay.
back to the
All
board.
right, thank you, Mr. President.
Roll call, please.
Roll call to adopt this, right?
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron?
Yes.
Ms. Boulay? Yes, to adopt it, yes.
Yes.
Mr. Burgarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray? No. Ms. Green? Mr. Howard?
No.
Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Levenstein?
No.
Ms. Paletti?
Yes.
Yes, it passed.
Last item I would like to add is just called open forum. What I'd like to do at every meeting is to have an open forum for any board member to ask any questions that they want based on anything that's happening either in our schools and our community. So I would like to add that as an item called open forum. Can I have a motion and a second to add?
Hold on. What was it, Mr. Lamar?
Discussion?
Who
Yeah, we're going to have a
seconded?
discussion.
I move to second.
Second?
Yep.
Discussion.
Discussion on it?
Yeah, can you explain what that is? I mean, other than, if we want to speak on non-agenda items, agenda items,
I don't know.
you're putting a specific portion of the meeting aside for.
Asking specific questions about anything
Open forum?
to the superintendent or to the board members. You can ask,
Board members or administration.
yeah, board members or administration.
Purpose?
It's just to put out, if there's a question about something that is not on the agenda, it's your opportunity to add an item to the agenda.
So is this like an I got you moment?
No, if I make an agenda that doesn't have something that you want to talk about, this is your opportunity.
But I would call you, Mr. President, can you add this to the agenda?
If there's something that pops up after the agenda's made, we can add it. We can ask a question about something that's come up 15 minutes before a meeting.
Point of order. Is this about asking a question as opposed to adding a resolution to the agenda?
That's right. There are no resolutions in this format. It's just asking questions to be able to get answers for the next board meeting or at some point. Thank you.
You have a question over here.
I just also want to comment as the DPO of the district that there are certain matters that the board members may question and request of senior cabinet or administration that we are not at liberty to discuss because it's a liability to the district. So in my role as DPO, I must inform the board, data privacy officer for the district, and FERPA liaison that there are certain questions that cannot be answered on the floor. I encourage the board that if there is a question that they may have to communicate so they can be answered in an effective manner through the board president or the board clerk so that we can work collaboratively towards the goals that you are determining to set in the future. Being asked on the floor to respond may make it seem as if we are lacking in transparency, and when it's simply that because of the privacy that we have to afford our employees and our students, we cannot respond. So as the DPO of the district, I encourage you to think carefully about this proposition.
We're not expecting answers at the board meeting. We're expecting answers to come in a format that's appropriate for the question. So you may ask 5 questions, and all of them can be answered either through email. If it's a private matter, it can't be put on the district website, but every question will be answered at some point.
Well, okay.
Roll call to add, please.
Ms. Boulay? Yes. Mr. Borgarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
No.
Ms. Green? Yes. Mr. Howard?
No.
Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Levinstein?
No.
Ms. Paletti?
Yes.
Mrs. Stradian?
Yes.
Okay.
So we are at open forum. Does anybody have any questions or Ms. Boulay?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. McLemore. Please advise me if this is appropriate or not appropriate, Mr. Shaw. So one of the things that I was thinking about to throw out to the board, I think it's really important that we get information from our former students, and since it was just graduation, I was playing around with the idea of a short Google form for any of those graduated students to provide feedback to the board, because they're really the front line. So I came up with a list. I would just like to give it to, I think it's Dr. Campbell that would get this, but just sample questions like, did you feel safe in high school, both physically and emotionally? If you did not feel safe, why? How can the schools improve? What do you consider to be your academic strengths and weaknesses? So there are questions like that to be under consideration to have this survey done. I fully understand that this is not a scientific survey because the respondents would only be whoever would choose to respond to it, but it would be a way in which we can, for anyone who hasn't been on the board, to really kind of get a gist, just an understanding. So can I just pass this up? Okay.
So it's kind of like an exit interview?
Yeah, kind of like an
via
exit interview.
survey?
Yeah, tell us what, we can do better for you in the future.
Mhm. So you can do this, and I guess what comes back to you may have to be filtered somehow?
Well, it
But
would
you
just
could
be a
certainly do the
Google
outreach.
form thing, and then it aggregates to a total list. We used it in, schools. It's not like a big deal to do. And I don't know how many people would respond. So again, I'm just throwing that out. Another thing that I thought, can I keep going or no?
Yes, please.
Okay, so another thing I thought of that maybe, I'm not sure how the agenda gets put together, but maybe we could talk about this as a board the next time. I have this idea of something that I'm calling building bridges. I think it's imperative that every student in every school have an opportunity to really understand what's in their own community that could be used as a resource. So again, just my thoughts coming out here. Sometime in July, the board selects 12 community-based organizations. I came up with a list of, far more than that, but I picked the number 12 because each of our 12 schools in NFA would be counted as one. And we would meet with the organizations to explain like a vision and a connection between a particular school and a particular organization for that year. They would say, yes, we want to be part of it. No, we don't want to be a part of it. And what would basically happen is that at an administrative retreat or something, the principals would decide which of those 12 organizations they want in their school. So if, for example, Boys and Girls Club is in a particular school already, that might be a natural pick for them to use. So each of the board members here, I'm sorry, Phil, each of the board members here would be assigned one of the schools just to go in maybe once a year to say, hey, how's it going? And then the president and vice president, because you have to come up with 12, would have to take 2. And then opening day, maybe we make a little video. Hey, we've got this Building Bridges program. By the way, we are the Board of Ed. This is who we are. We got elected. And in the first few weeks, in each school, that principal with the PTO, whoever they select to do this, would pick what I've called community ambassadors for the school. And this small group of schools would work with that organization periodically to get to know what it is that they do. For example, I have a couple of SPCAs on here just as an example. Maybe they would, present videos, whatever the principal deems as being necessary, and the PTO. And what they do all year is they basically fundraise for that particular organization. And that organization shows up once or twice in the year, and they build a relationship between that school and that particular organization. And if there would be money, maybe every child would get a pencil or a folder or something for that particular organization. And then, of course, we'd follow all the policies that we have for fundraising. I even put like some ideas on how to do that. And then at the end, the school gets to present a fake check of what it is that will be donated to that school. And perhaps, maybe, the ambassadors could be on a float for Memorial Day. Again, just an idea to be pondered, to think about. Okay, so I'll just pass that one forward. I have one thing, I believe it was Ms. Green at a meeting a while ago, asked a question about an enrichment program, and somebody said, we don't have to do that by law, and so it's only at Horizons. I'm paraphrasing, but I believe that was the conversation. I just want to point out to Ms. Green that we have policy 4322. I just happened to read it, that's why I know about it, called enrichment programs. It's a short policy. And it says the Board of Education encourages the growth of educational programs that challenge and promote the realization of individual potential in all students. The board also recognizes that it is necessary to expend in a cost-effective manner the allocation of resources towards academic programs and enrichment for students who have extraordinary capabilities and exceptional potential, such as those characterized by academic aptitude. It gives a list. The board therefore directs the superintendent to develop and implement a continuum of learning experiences to promote. So I just wanted to clarify that to the public. And then I can pass these forward. For myself, these are actually my notes, but I can send them forward. I have 3 questions for Dr. Campbell that I was going to figure out how I would ask. One of them, I won't read them, but one of them is in regard to any overrides to the SAVE legislation. So like, for example, for the public, on the 4th referral, a student is to receive an in-school suspension. Has that happened? Has anyone on this, in this room overridden that in some way because that's a law. There's restorative justice that have practices in tiers 1, 2, 3. It's a whole process of how you speak to the student, how you develop a relationship. But that, to my knowledge, does not override the slave legislation, so that's one of them. Another one is that, actually, I'm going to hold that one for if we do another executive session. And the third one is in regard to AIS. How is it delivered in each building? Do teachers go into classrooms? Do they pull students out? When are they pulled? If they're pulled out during, content, how do they make up that content? And also, are there any schools that don't provide AIS services? So AIS services would be based on state scores. You are required to have academic intervention services, and it must be provided. So that's what I'm asking about. So those were my ones for Dr. Campbell. And of course, the reason I'm asking these, just to be clear, is that, again, I really want to be clear about what the data says, where it is that we need to really look so that we can, if we have to, change and really get at what the problems are. For CNI, I have, how many do I have? 4. One is about the consultant from BOCES that the district hired a few meetings ago and spoke about the ARC program in regard to self-contained classrooms and how that was not the best way to do that, and explained why. So I'm asking, what are we doing instead? And then the second one that's near and dear to my heart, having taught English and math at the secondary level, I want to know what we're going to do about teaching those kids that are 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 that cannot read beyond a 4th grade reading level. Because when they get to that level, how are they taking Regents exams? Even if they're read to them, how are they writing it out? So I want to know, specifically, maybe it'll tie to the strategic plan, what it is that we're doing. Another one is a tracking tool for literacy and math. How are we going to do that this year? Are you taking iReady scores? How did we end up last year on iReady? And then finally, digital learning for those students who fails classes. I have some questions about that for CNI. And then for finance, she's not here, so I could either just read one or...
Are you going to send all these questions to?
Yeah, I have them here that I could give.
Okay, thank you.
Just for the financial one, though, because I think it's important for the public to hear. I am looking to see if we can get a full accounting of our stimulus money by source, ESSER, CARES, to a total, and then how we spent that money, and then going forward, what's left, from what source, what's the total, because that money will end. How are we using that money? Because that's going to then lead us to any changes we have to make as a board to not lay off people or lay off people. I believe we need that information now. And there was, during my training that I took, as I said, inside, there were some reports that the lawyers told us we needed to see on a periodic basis that are not. I looked at the audit committee. They were not listed, these particular reports, so I'm asking about those. And then HR, sorry, Mr. McLemore, but I have 16, so I'm asking, yeah, sorry, buddy. I'm asking about exit interviews, why we can't do them. I have a question about policy 9240, the way we hire and check references. They're not hard questions. I would really have an interest in the PD, do the custodians get it? The security guards get it? Who gets it every year? And they go on. They're pretty much direct questions. And I know you have the policies. Those are my notes. And then finally, Mr. Baer, I have for you a number of questions. how many students have IEPs, how many students have 504s, how do students and any caregivers have access to those IEPs or 504s, where are they housed, like in what system, what are our educational settings by building, by grade, do some buildings not have particular settings, how many students who received speech, did they get all of their speech? And again, I'll forward these to you. How many students with IEPs have had their full triennial reviews? Are any still not done? And if they're not done, when will they be done? Before September? And also about the PD for special ed. Again, from my perspective, teaching special education on the secondary level, many times we didn't have common planning time. And if you can't meet with your team to discuss kids to make particular behavior plans, if that kid is having a problem in English, math, social studies, and science, but I don't have any time to talk to any of those teachers because I do not have planning time like English teachers have, like other teams have, then how is that collaboration to happen so that we can help those students? So those are questions like that, and I will pass them forward to who they're going to. Dr. Campbell?
Can you email them?
Oh, yeah, I can email them.
Thank you. Does anybody have any? Yeah, Dr. Campbell.
So I know that you indicated that things would be responded to in 3 days. That's a lot of information to be responded to in 3 days.
Yeah, do the best you can.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. We'll get to it as soon as possible.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions? Mr. Levinstein.
Mr. President, didn't we just vote to add that item and not vote on that item?
We added the item. There's no vote to approve it.
There's no resolution to approve.
We just added
that.
it to the agenda.
You added it to the agenda,
Yeah.
but it needed to be approved to go forward. Ms. Boulay going to have to
Okay, I thought we had done
all
that.
those questions again.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought we had already done that.
And I thought I approved it, sorry.
Okay.
So I guess we go backwards to do roll call.
We'll do the roll call to approve it.
What do we vote
I
now?
do
Yeah.
have a motion in a second.
Yeah, I thought we had it.
We had a motion in a second.
Okay. Wow.
Okay. Ms. Boulay?
Yes.
Mr. Borgarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray? Ms. Green? Mr. Howard?
To approve the questions, to be able to ask questions. Wait, I thought that already had been done. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Levinstein? Ms. Paletti? Yes. Mr. Straight-Iron?
Yes.
Passed.
All right. Yeah. Actually, there's one item, I don't know how we can go back and do this, but in the organizational meeting, there wasn't, are we allowed to go back and add a name to that? To the parent surrogate, add a second name to that item.
You could ask for consent to add to the agenda that, right now, if you'd like.
Back in the organizational meeting,
It would be now part of this meeting.
oh, it'll be part of this meeting?
You can add it, right?
Okay. I'd like to add an item that was left off the agenda. It was number 2.11, number 30 under surrogate parent.
We need to go into executive session. We need to go into executive.
Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, Mr. McLemore.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the Human Resources agenda, I have items 7.1 through 7.18 for your consideration on tonight.
Would anyone like to separate any of these items?
I would.
Which items?
7.10.
7.10. Any others? We'll make a motion and a second for adding, to discuss items 7.1 through 7.9. Okay. 7.1 through 7.18 minus 7.10. Motion and a second, please. Roll call.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Are we discussing these items? Did we pass that point?
We're adding it to the,
We're not
We're
adding.
doing human resources, now 7.1 through 7.18 minus 7.10, Ms. Belay pulled.
Okay, but we can discuss any of those 17?
yes.
Okay, so we need to do that before we vote, correct?
Well, he asked if there's any items that any board members would like to pull.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then you started roll call.
We're roll call to add it.
Roll call, they're not adding anything.
We normally pull when
No,
you're,
I'm confused.
you're considering 7.1 through 7.18 minus 7.10.
I know, that's what I wanted.
And you're asking for questions.
Before vote.
Questions, please.
Yes, so I'd like to ask you a
Yes,
question.
sure.
Thank you. So the resolution 7.14, the SMOA with the district and the food service workers, and I just have some questions, and it kind of is a continuing thing. One of the questions is listed, and I don't, is that we have a lower summer rate that we pay employees that do the same job in September, and we have a lower rate in August, July and August. Is that true? I mean, I don't think I'm going out of the bounds of
It
what you
should
call it?
probably be an executive session discussion related to negotiations with the CSEA bargaining
Yeah, but this
unit.
is not for negotiate. This is a resolution to approve something. And I'm not here to disprove it. I'm not here to say, don't do this. My question is how did we get to this point? This is not the first time that there's a lower rate for someone doing the same work in the summer as they are doing it in the fall. And part of that SMOA, that's going to be changed, so that's fine that they're taking that away. But this SMOA is only till August 31st. So then it goes back to the old system. So I just trying to find out how we got to this point, why we got to this point. The same, it was similar to with food service workers hired after a certain day received a lower pay. So that's kind of what my question is for this. And of course, I'm going to vote for them to get the higher pay, which is, it's not high, but it's the same pay they would get for other times. But that's just, at some point, it would be good to have an answer to that question.
Mr. Shaw?
Right. Well, that really goes to the heart of negotiations, and that's a bilateral process, and that's something that should be executive session conversation.
Roll call, please.
Okay.
There's another question? Oh, Ms. Green. I think, yeah, he's already, Mr. Levinstein has already said he
Yeah,
should
I'm
vote
not,
yes.
I'm not looking for that, because this is a plus, what we're voting on for them today. But what, going forward, it certainly should, something that should be looked at with any new negotiations. But I'm not asking to pull it or table it, because it's a plus for those workers.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Green? Yes. Mr. Howard? Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Levinstein?
Yes.
Ms. Paletti?
Yes.
Mr. Stradiron?
Yes.
Ms. Boulay?
Yes.
Mr. Bergerelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Mr. Howard, yes.
Yes, it was a yes anyway. Thank you.
Come back to 7.10. Discussion on the item. Ms. Boulay.
I have a question. So this is for adult education. What kind of certifications do you need in order to teach that?
There is an adult certification that the state has, but this is teacher cert. Teacher cert. So these people that are listed here are certified to teach.
To teach adult education?
16 through 21. And then you'll see on the resolution that you already approved, there's another item after that, which is, I think, is EPI, or is it before it? Yeah, after that, 711, that's for,
That's GED.
yeah, 21 and up.
So GED and adult education are two different things?
They are.
And
You
so, okay. So everyone, so these three people have that cert. Thank you. That was the question.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on 7.10? Roll call.
Mr. Howard? Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Levinstein? Ms. Paletti?
Yes.
Mr. Stradiron?
Yes.
Ms. Boulay?
No.
Mr. Bergerelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray? Ms. Green?
That concludes my items, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McLemore. Item 8.1, or 8 is Assistant Superintendent of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. The items 8.1 to 8.7 are the finance items for board's consideration. Thank you.
Would any board member like to separate any items? Ms. Boulay.
I do, but I'm not sure which numbers they are. CIO is what? Which category? I have my questions. I'm just not sure if I'm in the right section. CIO, that's it. So I take that back.
All right. I actually have one, separate 8.3, please. So we're going to take into discussion 8.1 and 8.2 and an 8.4 all the way through 8.7.
Minus the 8.3, you mean?
Yeah, minus the 8.3.
Okay, so 8.1 through 8.7, minus 8.3. Okay.
Yes.
Motion second.
Discussion on those items? Roll call.
Motion in a second.
Oh, motion and second, please.
So moved.
Second, did you say so moved?
Yeah, okay.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Paletti?
Yes.
Mr. Stradiron?
Yes.
Ms. Boulay?
Yes.
Mr. Bergerelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray? Ms. Green? Mr. Howard? Mr. Lamar? Mr. Levinstein?
Item 8.3, resolution to dispose of district equipment. Any questions on this item? I have a question on this item. NFA Main vending machines 2 and NFA North vending machines 2. I know back a couple months ago, I had asked for vending machines for NFA Midtown and was told that they're too expensive, they didn't have the money for them. But now we're disposing of 4 vending machines. Are these vending machines for food? Do we know? And if they are, can they be used at NFA Midtown?
Thank you for your questions. These vending machines are obsolete and they're not able to be used, so they're not in the conditions to be used, and that's why they're recommended by Mr. Velez for disposal, and we are putting them for disposal.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Stridiron?
Yes.
Ms. Boulay?
Yes.
Mr. Barbarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray? Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Levinstein? Ms. Paletti?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
We're at item 9 on the agenda, Assistant Superintendent for CIO/DPO.
Tonight, we have items 9.1 through 9.7 for your consideration.
Would any member like to separate any of these items? Ms. Boulay?
Well, 9.1, and I'm looking for the one that's to rent space. Let's see.
I don't think,
Plug in. Thank you. So I'm in the wrong section again.
Yeah, that's 11.2.
Okay, so only one then.
We are going to entertain 9.2 through 9.7.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion on those items? Roll call. Oh, Mr. Levinstein.
Just a quick question, because, Ms. Peterson, I don't know how many times that you've brought forward in your section, but we have a good system with the committees. Where would these fall in the committees where it could be vetted there before it comes here?
that's something and an item that, why it's been separated out, because there has been a rotation of committees when it comes into consideration of technology, and the board has to select and appoint committees. So I will find out.
Okay, because my point is that, yeah, it would be better if it was one each month, so that committee would understand all these coming forward, all these resolutions. Thank you.
So question, most of these items are technology purchases?
These items were discussed at the June Curriculum Committee.
Thank you. Any other questions? Roll call.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Levinstein?
Yes.
Ms. Paletti?
Yes.
Mrs. Stradiron?
Yes.
Ms. Boulay?
Yes.
Mr. Borgarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
You have any other items?
Mrs. Boulay separated
Oh,
at
that's right,
9.1.
9.1.
I'm waiting for the question.
Thank you. 9.1, questions, please?
So just question, I tried to find the answer on my own, but I'm unsure if I understand it. JAMF licenses, what are those for?
So those are for Apple management. We have several iPad labs throughout the district as well. I mean, iLabs, so Mac labs. I had several iPads throughout the district that have to be managed as per data privacy and general network rules. So those require special licenses, and this is the request for funding to support the purchase of those licenses.
Any other questions on this item? Roll call.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Levinstein? Ms. Paletti?
Yes.
Mr. Stradiron?
Yes.
Ms. Boulay? Mr. Borgarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray? Ms. Green?
Yes.
That concludes my items.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. Number 10 is Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction Elementary.
Thank you, Mr. President. Elementary Curriculum Instruction presents item 10.1 through 10.3 for the board's consideration.
Would any member like to separate any items? I'd like to separate 10.1, please. So we're going to entertain 10.2 and 10.3 minus 10.1. Discussion on 10.2 and 10.3?
So moved.
I got it.
You got it?
It's separate, right?
Yeah.
We did 10.2, yes. Roll call, I got it.
Got it.
Mr.
Discussion?
Sorry.
You got it. You got it.
Roll call?
Roll call.
Mr. Levinstein?
Yes.
Ms. Paletti?
Yes.
Mr. Straight
Yes.
Ms. Boulay?
Yes.
Mr. Borgarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray? Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Item 10.1. Any questions on this item? Yeah, I pulled it. I have a question. Regarding conferences, at this point, we have Title II and general funds. In the past, we've had separation of how much Title II and how much general funds were going to be expended on these conferences. Can we get that in the future? Okay. At this point, do we know what those numbers are, or as we get closer to the conference?
So federal funds don't allow us to pay for food and transportation. No, that's not true. Food. I know it's food. So we have to use the general funds to support when people are on overnight conferences to feed them, and the rest of the conference and the travel comes out of the federal funds.
Thank you. And as far as conferences are concerned, I know that at some point, we're going to have to take a look at the expenditures on conferences in relation to the budget shortfall that we may have coming up. And can we get a breakdown of last year's expenditures on conferences? And if they were general fund, how much general fund, how much Title I, II, whatever the breakdowns are, and that the board can see that? Thank you. Roll call on this item?
Mr. Lamar? Yes. Mr. Levinstein? Yes. Ms. Paletti?
Yes.
Mr. Straight
Yes.
Ms. Boulay?
Yes.
Mr. Borgarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray? Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Thank you, Mr. President. That concludes my items.
Thank you, Ms. Moretti. Number 11, Assistant Superintendent Curriculum Instruction Secondary.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have items 11.1 and 11.2 for your consideration.
Would any member like to separate items? Ms. Boulay. So we have two items. We'll start with 11.1. We have to make a motion for discussion. Just make a motion and a second, please, to separate? Just to separate? To vote on it.
Discussion.
To vote?
Motion and a second.
Motion and a second to vote. Yeah.
So
Any questions on 11.1? Roll call?
Mr. Borgarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Levinstein?
Yes.
Ms. Paletti?
Yes.
Mr. Straight
Yes.
Ms. Boulay?
Yes.
All right. Dr. Farrow?
What was, I'm sorry, I don't know what the question was for 11.2.
We didn't ask. Yeah, 11.2. Any questions? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. McLemore, for reminding me my microphone's never on. Okay, so 11.2, it has been my long-time understanding that we do not subcontract out work that is teacher work. So on this particular proposal, 11.2, it's to rent space somewhere else. So I have a question on why we need to rent the space somewhere else for $16,500. And then why it's not NTA teachers who are teaching this.
This is excuse me for my grammar error, this is an adult GED program.
Right.
That is conducted off-site during flexible hours, some of which would overlap with our school buildings, and that's why it's not on-site. It is also funded fully through the grant program.
Ms. Peterson?
This is not a Newburgh and Lawrence City School District program. It is a state-funded. Newburgh oversees it as its governing grant administrator. So it's not something that is a part. The state selects areas based on demographics, different things. We're awarded the EPI grant. and it is administered, it's applied for, there's different things that go in it. So it's not something that's attached to our school district, but it's something that the community has wanted to be administered for adult education.
So again, my question is, though, as far as if there's no space anywhere in our district during the day in a section of a building to do this, rather than spend $16,500?
At this point in time, we are exploring other options, but at this point in time, the answer is no.
And just to reiterate, it would be having adults in the building with our students. These are adults.
Any other questions? Roll call.
Mr. Levinstein? Yes. Ms. Paletti?
Yes.
Mrs. Straight Iron?
Yes.
Ms. Boulay? Mr. Borgarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Mr.
Mr.
Lamar?
Yes.
That concludes my items, Mr. President.
Thank you, Ms. Farrow. Item 12, Assistant Superintendent for Exceptional Learners.
Thank you, Mr. President. Exceptional Learners has one item, 12.1, for the board's consideration.
Discussion on the item. Yep. Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Paletti?
Yes.
Mrs. Straight Iron?
Yes.
Ms. Boulay?
Yes.
Mr. Borgarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Levinstein?
Yes.
Thank you. That concludes my items.
Thank you, Mr. Baer. Item number 13, Clerk of the Board.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the approval of minutes from the June 20, 2023 regular meeting.
Motion and a second on the item.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Any questions?
Any questions on that? Thank you.
Sorry. Ms. Paletti?
Yes.
Mr. Straight Iron?
Yes.
Ms. Boulay?
Yes.
Mr. Borgarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Levinstein?
Yes.
I would also like to read into the minutes that Dr. Manning Campbell took the oath of office on June 26, 2023, because of her addendum to the agreement. This has been filed in my office. That concludes my items, Board President.
Thank you, Ms. Novotny. Right now, we're going to go into executive session. Be it resolved. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby recesses into executive session for the following purpose: appointment of a particular person as a parent representative, CSEA matters, collective bargaining, CSEA unit, advice of legal counsel. We may take action upon returning from executive. Have a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Duray? Ms. Green? Mr. Howard? Mr. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Levinstein? Ms. Paletti? Mr. Straight Iron?
Yes.
Ms. Boulay? Mr. Borgarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Lamar? Mr. Levinstein? Ms. Paletti? Mr. Straight Iron?
Yes.
Ms. Boulay? Mr. Borgarelli? Mr.
Yes.
Duray?
Yes, yes,
Ms.
yes.
Green? Ms. Howard?
Thank you. Oh, the doctor.